Welcome to today's Explainer. I'm so glad you're here, because we're about to completely rewrite the rulebook on how you think about your court footwork. Look, if you play badminton, you already know it's this incredibly intense, high-speed game of survival, right? But today, we're diving into the actual functional movement science that separates the pretty good players from the truly elite. We're going to break down exactly how to build a body that is anatomically designed for raw speed. Have you ever felt stuck in quicksand on the court while your opponent just glides? You absolutely know the feeling. You're watching a shuttle drop just inches from your racket, your brain is screaming at your legs to move faster, and they just won't. It's so frustrating. And naturally, our first instinct is, well, I just need to run more sprints, or I gotta hit the gym for some heavy leg presses. We think the fix is always more muscle or more cardio. But, as we're gonna see today, that gut instinct, it's actually holding you back.
Think about it this way. Imagine putting a 1,000-horsepower engine inside a car that only has bicycle brakes. Sounds crazy, right? But that's exactly how most badminton players train. We hit the gym, we build up these massive muscular engines with heavy squats and bicep curls, but we completely ignore our brakes and our transmission. You can have all the leg strength in the world, but if your body doesn't know how to safely slow down or transfer that energy, it's a total recipe for disaster on the court.
So here's how we're breaking this explainer down. We'll start with the court speed illusion, move into the functional pentagon, uncover the biological cheat code, walk through the 7-day blueprint, and wrap up with the rules for explosive power. All right, part 1, the court speed illusion. Let's talk about why bigger muscles do not equal faster speed. Look, the court literally does not care how much you can bench press. It only cares about how you move as a connected, integrated system. To be lightning fast, your body has to adapt to specific demands, a concept called the SAID principle. And the sheer reality of those demands, they're wild. Get this, 0.8 seconds. That is how often a badminton player is forced to change direction during a rally. You're not just running in a straight sprint, you are constantly stopping, starting, twisting, and jumping over and over. And the physical toll gets even crazier. Every single time you drop into a deep lunge at the net to dig out a drop shot, your lead leg is forced to absorb up to 4 times your body weight. 4 times! If you're only training isolated muscles and not preparing your body to handle those massive eccentric forces, well, you're not just going to be slow, you're basically asking to get hurt.
Which brings us to part 2, the functional pentagon, and how to actually build a usable body. If traditional training is like memorizing isolated muscle words in a dictionary, functional training is learning the actual grammar of court movement. It all comes down to balancing these 5 pillars. First, you've got to train to resist and utilize gravity. Second, you need the ability to safely absorb an impact and instantly exert force. Third, because the sport is so dynamic, you have to train in full 3D multiplanar movement, not just straight lines. Fourth is separation and cooperation, meaning you stabilize one joint while moving another. And finally, the kinetic chain. You have to make sure there are 0 power leaks as energy travels from the floor right through your core and into your racket.
Now, a great way to picture that 4th pillar is the joint-by-joint theory. Think of your body like an alternating layer cake. Your ankles, your hips, and your mid-back, they need to be highly mobile. But the joints trapped in between them, like your knees and your lower back, they need to be completely stable. So if your hips are super tight from, say, sitting at a desk all day, they lose that required mobility. When you go for a huge lunge on the court, your body is forced to borrow that missing movement from your lower back. And boom, that is exactly why so many players suffer from chronic back pain. We've got to fix that architectural blueprint. Moving on to part 3, the biological cheat code. It's time to talk about the stretch-shortening cycle. This concept right here is the big one. It's what separates the elite gliders from the players who feel stuck in the mud. It's called the Stretch-Shortening Cycle, or SSC for short. Basically, it's this amazing natural phenomenon where a rapidly stretched muscle tendon unit immediately contracts to produce explosive force. We're talking way more force than a muscle could ever generate on its own. In badminton, your nervous system uses this cycle mainly during the split step. You know that tiny hop players do right before their opponent hits the shuttle? They aren't just bouncing. They are actively preloading energy into their body. To really picture how this works, think of your Achilles tendons like thick, high-tension rubber bands. Step 1 is absorption, the stretch. When you drop into that split step, your calves and tendons stretch rapidly, storing up a ton of elastic energy. Step 2 is exertion, the snap. If you react instantly, that stored energy snaps back and absolutely launches you toward the shuttle. But here's the catch. Your ground contact time has to be minimal. If you stay flat-footed on the ground for even a fraction of a second too long, all that precious stored elastic energy is literally lost as heat, and suddenly you're back to relying on slow, sluggish muscle strength. All right, part 4. Let's shift from theoretical biomechanics into the practical payoff with the 7-day blueprint for Kinetic Court Mastery. So, what does this look like in the gym? Before we even look at Monday, there is one completely non-negotiable rule you have to follow every single day: a 10-minute mobility prep. I'm talking ankle rockers to get your knees pushing over your toes, hip 90-90 drops to free up those tight glutes, and T-spine rotations for those brutal round-the-head shots. I seriously cannot stress this enough. This is not just a warm-up. This is the absolute foundation for your athletic longevity. It opens up the kinetic chain and enforces that joint-by-joint theory we discussed earlier. Okay, go ahead and take a screenshot of this schedule right now. This is the flow of the entire blueprint. Notice how it moves logically through the week, starting off with raw lower body power, moving into core rotation, taking a strategic active rest day, then unlocking those biological springs for speed, and finally, training our deceleration breaks right before the weekend.
Let's break down the start of that week. Monday is all about building the engine using proximal to distal sequencing, which is really just a fancy way of saying power starts in the legs and whips upward through the body. We use Bulgarian split squats to force the legs to absorb weight. We also use something called complex training, taking a heavy squat and following it instantly with an explosive jump squat. It literally tricks your nervous system into firing every single available muscle fiber. Then, Tuesday is about building the whip. A 400 km/h smash needs massive hip-to-shoulder separation, which we build with medicine ball slams. We pair that with Palov presses for a rock-solid core so you don't leak power or collapse forward when you're lunging hard at the net. By Wednesday, trust me, your nervous system is going to be screaming for a breather. Enter active recovery. The whole goal here is quieting the noise of the sport by working on proprioception, your body's awareness in space. Think about it, you almost never stand perfectly still on 2 feet in badminton, right? So we use single-leg weight transfers to target and strengthen those tiny, easily forgotten stabilizer muscles around your ankles. It is exactly how you bulletproof yourself against those nasty ankle sprains. Now, Thursday is the big one. This is where we activate that biological cheat code. We're doing pogo jumps, bouncing purely from the ankles with relatively stiff knees. This trains your tendons to act like literal stiff springs, maximizing that stretch-shortening cycle. We follow those up with depth drops off a box to build instant force reaction. And then comes Friday, which is all about building better breaks. We do multi-directional weighted lunges and cable decelerations. Remember those forces of 4 times your body weight? Friday ensures your body can actually handle that massive eccentric load so you don't shred your knee tendons.
And finally, the weekend. Saturday is match play. It is so crucial to take all these new movement patterns from the gym and pressure test them under the unpredictable stress of a real game. But Sunday? Sunday is non-negotiable full, total rest. Because here's the secret. The biological adaptation to all this intense training doesn't happen while you're lifting. It happens while you're resting on the couch. Your nervous system absolutely needs this day to rewire itself for the next week.
All right, our last section, part 5, rules for explosive power. It's all about quality over quantity.
Listen carefully here, because this entire 7-day blueprint is totally useless if you tackle it with the wrong mindset. Look at how remarkably low these recommended rep ranges are. For specific ballistic movements, like lunge hops, science recommends just 3 sets of 5 reps per leg. Why so few? Because plyometric training is entirely about velocity and minimizing your ground contact time. If you ignore these specific, low-volume rep ranges and try to grind through fatigue like a bodybuilder, your speed will completely vanish. Even worse, putting high volume on exhausted tendons leads to severe tendinitis that can easily sideline you for months. Bottom line, if you're too tired to be fast, you must stop the set immediately.
So, I'm going to leave you with this final, provocative question. Are you ready to stop training like a bodybuilder and start building a body that was anatomically designed to completely dominate the court? If you're ready to ditch those bicycle brakes and unlock your own biological cheat code, take this blueprint and try it out this week. Let me know in the comments below which day of the schedule looks the absolute hardest to you. And hey, make sure to hit that subscribe button for more science-backed explainers. I'll catch you next time.